Well, why don't we go ahead and get started? Thank you all for joining us for our Community Oversight Advisory Committee meeting. My name is John L. Bell, and I am your facilitator for today. If we could click to the next slide, please. Amber, I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of walk through all of our meeting details.
Sure. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. By now, I'm sure many of you know how to use Zoom, but just for those of you who are listening via live stream, and for those of you who aren't familiar, in the lower left-hand column, you will see a unmute and a start video button. It's in the lower left-hand column of your computer. For COAC members, feel free to mute and unmute yourself and turn your video on and off to, for self-care. For those of us that will be providing the backup support for the meeting, many of us will have our video off to allow the COAC members to be the main focus, as well as the speakers during the meeting. There will be a point here in time where you will have an opportunity to provide public comment. As you can see, there is a phone number if you need technical assistance to contact Grace. Her phone number is 503-479-8674. If we can go on to the next slide, and we will show you the agenda.
Great, and just to go through the agenda real quickly, once again, thanks for participating today. We'll receive some updates from Project Director Megan Channel. Then we'll have a quick overview of the March 4th meeting summary notes. Then we'll have an opportunity. You'll recall at our last COAC meeting, we have started to really roll up our sleeves and working with the CMGC on the initial diversity plan. And so today you'll have an opportunity of really focusing on an element of the diversity plan, which of course is the green sheet process. So we'll have an overview of that and then break out into small group discussions where we will be seeking all of your great thoughts in terms of additional things we can do on this program. We'll have public comments, and then we'll conclude and have next steps. Next slide, please. Amber, back to you.
Sorry, I was on mute. Just a friendly reminder that that this meeting is being recorded. For those of you that would like to provide public comment, you can provide public comment either through the website. You can also provide public comment via email, or there will be time later after the breakout groups where you can provide formal comment by calling in. Again, if you have technical issues, call Grace at 503-479-8674. Next slide. So if you're listening to this via live stream, the CMGC will be discussing the green sheet, and then there'll be discussion in the breakout groups by the COAC members as well as the CMGC. So if you want to provide public comment, we will be reconvening from that at 5:42. So feel free to call in then and make your public comment. Next slide.
Great, thank you, Amber. Just a reminder for our rules of the road. This, of course, all these are a routine for COAC members. The first is for us to let everyone participate by listening to and respecting diverse views and opinions. Listen with an open mind. Value learning from different input. Stay open to new ways of doing things. That's going to be especially true as we start to think about opportunities for DBE firms. Treat others constructively and respectfully. Next slide, please. Respect the role of the facilitator to guide the group process. My role is to be a neutral observer and to help guide the conversation along. And so at times I will do that in various ways. I'd sometimes ask you to perhaps step up if you're being too quiet and we need to hear your perspective, or at times asking you to step back if you are perhaps taking up too much space. And so I'll try to balance that off with all of you. For us to attack the problem, not the person. Disagreement, frustrations, and differences of opinion are acknowledged, explored, and addressed. You are all around this table because of what you bring to this effort. And we really want to create an opportunity as well as an environment where all of your perspectives, professional as well as lived experiences, can really be fostered here. Next slide. With that, I'll turn it over to Megan.
Thanks, Janelle, and hey, good evening, COAC members. I've got another exciting meeting ahead of us here. I'm really anxious to get into the weeds of all the great information that our CMGC partners are going to be sharing tonight, and hearing your feedback on that as well. I wanted to just touch base and just give an update on the independent highway cover assessment. I know at your last meeting, we did a bit of an extended and special session for your feedback in that process. So just wanted to keep you apprised on how it's going and how you can continue to stay involved in what's to come. So the independent cover assessment team is in the middle of their second round of community engagement. They did just conduct 2 community workshops and launched their second online open house just last week. And so again, this is stage 2 in a 3-stage process with the 3rd round of community workshops and open house activities expected to take place in early June. And so the independent assessment team really brings a viewpoint that is independent of ODOT, and we're looking forward to seeing the design concepts as they evolve. We're really interested in seeing the designs and really understand in more detail what options are of priority to the community, the technical considerations around each of those, and better understanding what it will take to achieve them. And so the months ahead are going to be really important to not only identify what those designs will look like, what the program on top of the highway cover will be, but also determining information around the financial, the design, and the contracting and permitting feasibility of each of the scenarios, and how they can be worked into our overall project development work plan. So again, there's some really great work happening with that independent team, and really just looking forward to seeing their continued refinements and outcomes of that work. So I want to encourage each of you and your networks to share your feedback and participate through the online open house. I don't believe we have the chat activated tonight, but we'll make sure to send a separate email and follow up to this meeting with a direct link to that online open house. It is open until May 3rd, so you and your network still have lots of time to share your feedback. In terms of schedule moving forward, again, there will be another round of online open house and community workshops in June, as I mentioned, with completion for this process targeted for the mid-July, where the community recommendations will be taken up to the Oregon Transportation Commission for the Transportation Commission to provide their direction on how we incorporate the findings from this independent assessment into our project. So lots has been done to date, but lots more to come. I also just want to acknowledge kind of where we are in our process, and we're at a pivotal moment. And you know, I think that going back to the principles and why we're here and why we have a COAC and why you are so important to this process, that our COAC principles are really central to the conversation around what this project means for the community. In reflecting on this with the joining of our CMGC team, and again, just kind of starting to take action in a number of the fronts that we've been talking about for a while, you know, this project is about creating jobs. It's about opening up unprecedented opportunities for DBE participation in a way that we have not really seen on ODOT projects before. It's about breaking down barriers and that prevent DBEs from bidding on ODOT projects and being proactive about that. Involving DBEs early with technical assistance, building a career pipeline for our future construction workers and future workforce. This has an impact on people, on families, lifting families out of poverty. And it's about creating intergenerational wealth, both now and into the future. So as we continue to work and partner with you, COAC members, in your oversight role, I just want to keep us focused on these priorities and how they are absolutely critical to the success, not only of the project, but to our community and to our Portland region. And so I just want to thank you for continuing to show up with us in this space, and thank you for your oversight and keeping us focused on what matters in terms of the outcomes that we have an opportunity to provide. So with that, Janelle, I'll turn it back to you, or happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Megan. Any questions from members of the committee? And if folks could use the raised hand feature, I will call on you from that perspective. Okay, seeing none. Next slide, please.
Hey.
Oh, I see James Posey. James Posey?
Yeah, hey, how's everybody doing? Megan, I just wanted to check in with you because I was interested in the numbers, whether or not we as a committee had access to the state economists about the benefits of this project, whether or not anybody is forecasting that we have real numbers to be able to make the case about how valuable this project is going to be for us in the future. Do we have access to anybody in Business Oregon or any other economists that is employed by the state to work with us on that?
Yeah, I think we can definitely engage more of the economic and economist arm within ODOT to help us with that. But I think also a lot of the work that we'll be doing and partnering here with our CMGC team and just understanding the opportunities available. But to your point, starting to monetize those and then discuss how they have a broader impact even just beyond the construction of this project is a really valid point. So one that I would like to look into more and make sure we're getting the right voices around the table.
Please, Megan, you understand that it's real critical that those of us who are advocates for this project have the wherewithal to be able to share with the broader community about what's at stake here. And
absolutely,
unless we can quantify and qualify what the outcomes are going to be, then we're just kind of, I don't want us just to be talking to ourselves about how valuable this project is. And sometimes, you know, we can get lost with that. So I'd like to see a robust approach to trying to quantify what this project really means.
Absolutely, we can look into that. And Janelle, before we jump off of project updates, I should have started with this. And just want to acknowledge that this week in particular with the verdict that came out around the death of George Floyd, I know has had a profound impact in our world that we live in and to each of us. So I just wanted to acknowledge that we're working within, you know, really close and proximate time to that pivotal moment in history. We did end up canceling our Historic Albina Advisory Board meeting on Tuesday night in light of that to give the team and our board members the time and space to reflect and take the time with their families. And so I just want to acknowledge that at any point tonight, just in light of the world that we are in and what we're going through, just please take the time and the space that you need as we continue to move through this work.
Great, thank you, Megan. Next slide, please.
Oh, now, before we move forward, this is Kenichi. I have a quick question on the project updates. We've certainly seen in the news some of the lawsuits that have kind of been attached to this project. I'm curious if you can shed some light on that and provide us with just some updates on what's going on with that.
Yeah, thanks for asking that, Kenichi. So we did receive a lawsuit filed for the project. It was filed beginning of April. And the plaintiffs are No More Freeways, Neighbors for Clean Air, and Elliott Neighborhood Association. And that was filed with at the federal level, so with the Federal Highway Administration. So we are actively in communication with Federal Highway Administration around that and kind of working through the details. That is, given that it is an active lawsuit, that is all I can say at this moment. But as we have more information that we can share, I'd be happy to keep this group apprised.
And I see Reverend Hennessy has a question as well.
Actually, I was grateful that Kenichi, first of all, good evening, everybody. Good to see you. Kenichi started the conversation that I wanted to see us get into. And of course, recognizing that there is litigation involved here, I recognize you can't get deeply into it. I would ask that you keep us apprised to whatever extent that you can going forward. I was out of town and got notification of it, and then also saw in the news while I was out of town that there were people that were, I think, demonstrating as well. And if you have any information on what the demonstration was about, that would be helpful too. And I would just say going forward, to the extent there's activity like that, we all may not see the same thing. If it's possible, just to be updated on those things as well. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you have my commitment to be able to, I will share with this group what we are able to as this progresses. To your point specifically about the demonstration, Pastor Hennessy, yes, there was a demonstration, again, hosted by the same entities that I just noted in the lawsuit. And, you know, I think significant concerns from those groups around air quality, climate action, and public health, in particular around the project's proximity to Harriet Tubman Middle School. And so we continue to share the values that we want to make sure that this project is not causing more harm to the community, that we're not exacerbating the harms of the past. We do know that this project does show an improvement to air quality. That said, we know that there is more work to do in continuing to work with our partners and how we can do better and address the concerns on that topic, and then specifically with relation to Harriet Tubman Middle School.
So
James Posey?
yeah, I was just going to say, Megan, I live in the Elliott neighborhood. I live right down the street from Dawson Park. And if I had any inkling that there would be discussions about, I'm not a member of the Elliott Neighborhood Association, but we got to figure out a way to connect the dots. I would be in those meetings at the Elliott Neighborhood Association, giving counter views about how this project and what it does. I was unaware, and somebody in your organization has to connect the dots, keep us connected to what the processes are going on relative to this project. I can't, you know, we just volunteers out here, but unless somebody has a broad perspective on how we push back against opponents of this project, we're in trouble.
Yeah,
you understand what I'm saying?
I do, and yeah, we will do better in making sure that we're sort of communicating out to this group. Not only just the updates, but kind of, again, what we're hearing in terms of broader community conversations, so that in your role as COAC members, you're able to engage as you see fit.
Thank you.
Okay, I need to move on. So next slide, please. Thank you for those questions and updates. Really important for you all to stay abreast. Amber, I'm going to ask for you to just go quickly over the March 4th notes.
So just really quickly, you all received a copy of the notes. If there are any comments or edits, can you please let us know what they are? If not, we're going to move on to the meat of the matter, which is the CMGC discussion around the green sheet and then the breakouts.
Great. And so let me go ahead and tee this up. As you'll recall, COAC at our last meeting We had an opportunity of spending time with the CMGC, unpacking the diversity plan. And so today we are joined by members of the CMGC to roll up our sleeves a little bit more deeply with respect to the green sheet process. With that, I am turning it over to Bill Bruce. So Bill, all yours.
Hey, thanks, Jonelle, and thanks everybody for being here tonight. I want to again thank you for your commitment to be involved with this process. I recognize that you are all longtime volunteers in these efforts. Yeah, to build on what Jonelle was just saying, to give context to where we left off, last month we had just submitted our preliminary, the subcontracting portion of our diversity plan, the draft. We were about halfway through the 20% estimate. So it was difficult really to get into any meaty topics at that time. But we did have a good opportunity to just focus in on historical barriers, build some consensus around historical barriers. And we got a lot of good takeaway information from that discussion and appreciated it. So tonight, shortly after that last meeting, the 20% estimate wrapped up, which really allows us to go to work on the green sheet, which you heard also described earlier. That's our planning tool for DB contracting. As contractors, we plan and figure out literally everything, and we should be doing the same kind of effort needs to go into contracting and into workforce. So we're bringing forward a practice that we've had in play for quite a long time here in the Portland metropolitan area with the green sheet. You asked several times, you said you want to see the science. So tonight we're going to dip our toes into the science. I would forecast that it'll be an overview to a degree, but we will also be able to expand on that sometime in the future as the project progresses. Tonight I brought with me the same team that we had last time. These are all people that are actively working on the project or coming to the project very soon. Matt O'Connell's here tonight, Brad Sullivan, Jennifer Erickson, Jeff Moreland Sr., Brianna DeCobb, Belinda Mutoni, Deb Odell, Webb Moreland, Tayo Adishida, and Terrence Hayes. So it's really important from our perspective that these people all be here from the very beginning and through this entire process, so they know the history and they could carry our ethos forward. So to touch on where we're going with the slide deck tonight and with the information, we're going to start out with touching on some of the guiding principles. We're going to move into an overview of the schedule, and then we're going to move the schedule for the project. Then we're going to move into an overview of the work in general and also by type of work. And then we're going to present the green sheet methodology, followed by the results of our analysis for the 20% estimate. So that's where we're going tonight. We hope that you all get a lot out of this, and that this is just one more step forward in the process. Matt, you want to take it to the next slide?
Sure. Thanks, Bill, and good afternoon. We just wanted to double back on really what we're all trying to accomplish here as a team regarding subcontracting. Megan did a really nice job of hitting on some of this already, but again, we're really here trying to maximize the opportunities and build capacity of our DBE firms, not just for the Rose Quarter, but for future projects, so that these companies can move forward and be successful and sustainable for a very long time. we also want to further business expertise, and we'll do that by providing technical assistance. And then we're also going to be ready to assist firms in certification that haven't done that, so that they can participate on this historic project. And last, we want to provide new opportunities for DBEs by forming new relationships with our companies, and also between some of the more established DBE companies that we anticipate will be subcontracting on this job with some of the newer small firms. So with that, next slide, please.
The project's divided into 4 packages, 3 early work packages and 1 main construction package. Early work A is just the north end of the main line. Early work package B is the south end of the main line. C is various demolitions. And then there's also the main construction work in the middle portion. The project schedule is projected from 2023 to 2027 with a projected cost of up to $654 million.
So this is just to give everyone a broad overview of what we'll be talking about in a few minutes. So as Belinda was saying, early work package A is located on the very north end of the project, highlighted in orange. So this package encompasses 5 bridges. We'll be constructing 7 new retaining walls along the I-5 main line, as well as 2 stormwater facilities. And this also includes on and off ramp work, as well as I-5 mainline paving. On the very south end of the project is early work package B. This encompasses 7 bridges total. We'll be constructing 5 new retaining walls, as well as on and off ramp work along the I-5 mainline in that area, and mainline paving. Early work package C is located towards the middle of the project, and this includes just various demolitions, but this really sets the stage for our main package work. So the main package is shown in yellow, highlighted on the map. That includes the I-5 cover, 12 new retaining walls, lowering the I-5 mainline to accommodate the new cover, as well as various city street improvements, as you can see highlighted in the yellow outline there. And then it also includes the new Clackamas pedestrian and bicycle bridge overcrossing that we'll be constructing just south of the cover. Next slide.
Okay, so to get into structures, one of the first structures is a highway cover. It's anticipated to be $120 million to $150 million, and it's in the main package. It's a cast in place structure, and the cost is preliminary, and it's based off the 20% estimate. And like Megan was saying at the beginning of the meeting, we are in stage 2 of the independent cover assessment. So I think it's stage 2 out of 3, and we're also awaiting Oregon Transportation Commission direction.
Like I was just explaining on the previous slide, our project includes a lot of bridge work. So this work is totaling between 70 million to 90 million and is included in all 3 packages, package A, B, and the main. There's a lot of different bridges on the project. Most are cast in place, but we do have a concrete box girder bridge. And just depending on existing conditions and where these bridges are located, we'll be constructing these bridges on either drilled shaft foundation or micropile foundation. And these bridges will either be constructed with steel girders or precast girders.
Okay, then also on this project, we'll have 24 walls estimated at 35 million to 45 million. They will be in packages A, B, and the main package. There are 3 different wall types on the project: mechanically stabilized earth walls, cast in place concrete walls, and sound attenuation walls.
So what we're also building is the roadway, which is also 90 to 110 million. Like stated before, understanding the packages A, B, and the main package is essential, not just for opportunity, but also success and understanding what was in those scopes of work. You got removal and demolition, excavation and grading, subgrade stabilization, reinforced concrete paving. As you guys can see, there's a lot of opportunity for your entry level, mid-level, and advanced level subcontracting opportunities.
And in terms of streetscape, as you can see, it's 80 to 90 million, and this is part of the main package. We have landscaping, aesthetic elements, utilities, drainage, concrete sidewalks, and asphalt paving as well.
So we're also looking at electrical, signing, lighting, signals, and ITS, estimated between 10 million and 15 million. And that'll be in packages A, B, and the main package. So part of that is temporary and permanent lighting, variable message signage, traffic signals, and intelligent transportation systems, ITS.
And last but not least, there's ancillary scopes that range from 40 to 60 million in all three packages that involve construction survey, maintenance of traffic, that's all the temporary signs, cones, barrels, barriers, striping, everything needed to get bikes, peds, motor carriers, and transportation through the project. And last is erosion control, which is, permanent seeding, silt fence, straw bales, inlet protection, so on and so forth. I'll turn it back over to Jeff to talk about the preliminary analysis.
So we just want you guys, everybody to understand, first of all, good afternoon, everybody. It's good to see everybody here. And again, like Bill stated, I want you all to know how much I appreciate you guys volunteering your time for this important endeavor that we're on. But I want to make sure we understand that this is just preliminary. This is just a 20% design. That's all we are. We're at 20% design. And so we still have a lot of design iterations to go through, 30%, 60%, 90%, all the way to IFCs. So there's a lot of more work we have to do. A lot of assumptions were made where we were lacking details. We're at 20% design, so we don't have a lot of details. So we had to use our historical and our experience to kind of give a best guess to come up with what we thought the real value was. And then finally, we also were awaiting the independent cover assessment. So the numbers that we use for the independent cover assessment came out of the RFP. So we don't know what that conclusion is. We don't know what direction we're going to ultimately get. So we just use what we had to kind of plug that number. And then we also have to look at historical construction values and how that's going to impact, especially with changing market conditions. There's a lot of projects going on. You've all seen the advent of COVID. We've seen pricing go through the roof. So we got a lot of market conditions that we're going to have to really evaluate. So this is just a preliminary analysis. We have a lot more work to do. So that's one of the, make sure I'm clear on that. All it is preliminary.
Next slide, please. All right, folks. So the next two slides are really to try and dive a little deeper on the actual green sheet process. So I'm gonna go a little bit slow here. For some, a graphical representation helps. So this is sort of a simplified down graphical representation of what the process entails. You first have inputs on the left. You have to have a specific project scope. So in this case, the 20% design is the project scope. You also need to understand the DB contracting community, both existing contractors, big and small, and areas where we've had historic capacity needs that have not been met. So if you start with those two ingredients and you put them into the process, so that's now we're in the middle box, and in the process you tie the scopes of work to the DVs that you know of, and you do that by using your successful past experiences. you use local current knowledge of what folks are doing and what their current workloads are, where their focus is for contracting. And then as Jeff mentioned, you consider current market conditions. There's more to that. Probably we could go on and on, but that's the process of matching up. And what we get in terms of outputs to the right is we get our DBE subcontracting opportunities. We get our capacity building opportunities. And on this project, we're going to have some mini prime opportunities. So that's all relative to DBE contracting. And this is the green sheet process. So if I can go to the next slide. This is what it actually looks like. It's a spreadsheet. Hopefully that doesn't surprise or let anyone down. You can also find samples of this spreadsheet in the appendix to the draft diversity plan that you should have received last month. This is a snippet of the overall green sheet, as are the samples that are in the diversity plan. It's intended really just for me to walk through and try to explain so you can understand the methodology behind this. So I'll start going from left to right across the top. Columns B through G are what you would normally see as a bid tab for any project, any public works project. We call them bid items in column D. Vertically on this sheet, you're looking at about between 20 and 30 bid items. The actual number of bid items for the 20% estimate is around 470. So again, this is just a snippet of the green sheet. It's really 470 line items long. So there again, moving across the top, column D is the description of the item. For example, drilled shaft reinforcement, rebar. Column E is the quantity. Column F is the unit of measure. And then column G is the total cost. Moving to the right is really the green sheet analysis. And this type of analysis can be done for contracting, it can be done for workforce, it can be done for any number of resources that go into the project. Column I is simply what from historical or from past experience would likely be subcontracted work, not differentiating between DBE or non-DBE, just likely subcontracted work, meaning not self-performed by the joint venture. Column J is our assessment of where you would normally see DBE subcontracted work. So there again, it is a portion of that likely subcontracted work. And that portion is a calculation that is just simply based on our experience on past projects. So for this project, we wanted to shine a light on areas where we think capacity building is possible. And that's column K, where titled potential DBE contracting. So there again, this is the opportunity for capacity building. We actually see this on every project. We don't normally, I shouldn't say that, we do normally look at it. We just don't normally present it in this fashion. But we want you to see the science behind it, and that's what column K is for. It's really to zoom in on those scopes of work where we see a void of DBE contractors, where we think it would be reasonably possible to get existing or new DBEs connected with these opportunities. So now columns L through N are all focused on mini prime program. And we've been doing this every time it makes sense on any project where it makes sense, where we can carve out a discrete portion of the project that would allow a DB contractor to have multiple subcontractors of their own and control an overall portion of the project, and wherever possible, allow them to get onto the project early, like we did, and participate in pre-construction services. So those are all the key factors that we think go into being a mini prime. So column L is the value of the overall mini prime scope related to the items in column D. Since a mini prime is going to have multiple subcontractors, it's reasonable to assume that some of them will be DBE contractors and some of them will be non-DBE contractors. So columns M and N try to differentiate between those two values by column N carving out the portion that would be self-performed by the mini prime, and column N the portion of the work that would be performed by a second tier DBE. So again, it's just to try to sort out what dollars will actually be landing in the scope of a DBE. So that's really an overview for how the green sheet works. Again, the real green, this is a snippet from the actual green sheet. It's focused on real walls that are on this project. The overall green sheet, as I stated, is 470 line items long, and the previous slides that you saw where members of the team introduced basically 7 different buckets of work are basically just that. They're the buckets of the work that this breaks down into. Next slide. So I'm going to hand this over to Jennifer, and she's going to describe the work in more traditional way of looking at it.
And 1 second, we have a question from Christine.
Yes, thank you. Can you go back to the previous slide? On the mini CM's GC, who determines what, if that DBE MCMGC for their contractors, their subs, does that DBE determine who their subs are going to be, or is it determined by you, I guess, the Hamilton Raymore team?
No, normally they select their own subs. The mini prime would select their own subcontractors, and we would encourage them to maximize the use of DBEs below them.
Thank you.
So Christine, the whole goal here is to help the mini primes develop into primes. So we let them control the work, and we're just there to provide mentorship for them in that process. So they really are controlling the scope of work.
Great. No, I'm happy you're doing that, because then we have more qualified DBEs in the future. And obviously you're probably going to do some kind of project management with them, right? To make sure that they are, managing their DBEs correctly and doing everything that's needed as far as documentation and so on, according to your plans. So thank you. Thank you.
And we have Reverend Hennessy. You're muted, Reverend.
We should all know better than that by now. My question's in the same area that Christine's talking about, and I'm more concerned, and if we're having a smaller group discussion later, if this is an offline thing I need to ask later, that's fine. I'm obviously happy to see that there'll be these opportunities. My biggest concern is always the financial wherewithal for people to play ball, because often they need some upfront money to be able to do what we're talking about. And that many times is the problem with the ability to participate or not participate because they don't have lines of credit or something like that, to be able to do that, and then the burden of the paperwork and everything else that's necessary when it comes to participation.
Matt, you're absolutely correct. And that is an offline, much bigger conversation. And that will kind of take us down a rabbit hole for this conversation. But I'm more available. You always call me. We can talk about that. But you're absolutely correct. Absolutely.
And Kenichi? Were you going to say something, Bill?
I was just going to say those are the obstacles, but they're also the justification for why mini prime is so important, is because these larger scopes are what get a mini prime to the level where bonding and cash aren't the issue anymore.
We have Kenichi, and then we'll have James Posey.
Thanks. Really appreciate walking us through the document and how you got to your numbers. Questions on the mini CMGC opportunities. Curious about how many you are thinking at this point you'll have throughout the project. And then I'm hopeful we dive into this a little later in our breakouts, but what are the specific, Pastor Hennessy, you and I are kind of reading each other's minds tonight. What are the specific capacity building tools that you will be implementing for the mini CMGCs, and then also for the subs, the DBEs under the mini CMGCs? I think as we think about the ecosystem on this project, how will we allow the mini CMGCs be able to support the DBEs that they are managing in a way that allows them to still be successful in their work?
Let me handle this. You guys are absolutely on it today, and of course you're going way ahead. For the purpose of this conversation, all Kenichi and Dr. Hennessy, those are all very good, but we got to talk about the science first. Those are future steps that we have to talk about. And I know you want to get to that now, but if we try to answer all those questions now, we're never going to get through the green sheet. But everything you said, Kenichi, is absolutely spot on. It's actually the way we've been thinking about our diversity plan, rights to all that stuff, because all that is critical to the mini CMGCs being successful and the actual subcontractors that are DB under them being successful. So we recognize that. It's just a much longer conversation for the purposes of this meeting.
Jennifer's going to answer your first question, though, in 2 slides from now.
We'll have James Posey and then Christine, and then we're going to allow the CMGC to continue, and then we'll take more questions at the tail end.
No, I just want to say, I think the group identified this kind of work as being non-traditional. Most contractors wouldn't even approach a situation where you have many subs. So my concern is whether or not ODOT acknowledges this is non-traditional and provides the necessary support to make this successful. Because at the end of the day, this means much more work, much more responsibility. And I'm not about trying to ignore that. And I hope that everybody in this whole group doesn't ignore that this is really a forward-thinking, progressive way of approaching contracting where we actually get some results. So I don't see anything where ODOT has really acknowledged this particular process over and above just allowing the contract to move forward.
Yeah, James, you're absolutely right, and this is innovative and exciting work, and it's work that we as ODOT can't do by ourselves, and it's work that our CMGC can't do by themselves. So we really have to come to the table and partner together to make this successful.
Christine?
I just want to say to Pastor Hennessy's about talking about the numbers and all that. I think some of us would like to be part of that conversation. So if you can, when you do have that conversation, if you can actually invite us, that would be great. Thank you.
And just to comment on that, we'll make sure that that is a topic of conversation before this whole committee. So that will be a day-lit conversation that we can all weigh in on.
Yeah, Christy, I'll make sure that is a meeting around technical assistance and capacity building.
Jennifer?
Thank you, Bill. So DBE opportunities that we have identified. So first tier opportunities are earthwork, grading and trucking, electrical, walls, drainage, landscaping, asphalt paving, construction survey, maintenance of traffic, and erosion control. Next slide. Oh, there we go. So for capacity building and expanded opportunities, we see those as reinforcing steel, bridge demolition, signage, painting and coating, variable message signage, and roadway barrier attenuator. So we think there's capacity to be built in those scopes. Next slide. And then for the mini CMGC, so mini prime is the intent of a mini CMGC. So like Bill was saying earlier, the intent of that is the opportunity for the DBE to be a prime, run work, get involved early on the project, and have subcontractors and manage them. So we see that as 3 to 5 firms. The scopes are TBD, and they will likely include streetscape and walls.
So, what we felt like is important to share, some summary values with you folks out of that analysis that Bill discussed, and looking at that second bullet, that value 65 to 75 million worth of DBE subcontracting, that's represented in that first slide Jennifer presented in those scopes. The capacity building, which was her second slide, the tool values out at 25 to 35. And then the mini prime value that came out of the spreadsheet was 55 to 65. And that all rolls up to the bullet up on top of that range for overall DB subcontracting on the project. Next slide. Thank you. You got this one, Bill? Oh.
I think Kenichi might have a question, or else or
I do, thank you. Could we go back to that last slide? I'd like to validate a couple things. My memory is a little rusty, so forgive this question, but what is the size? Are we talking about these numbers for the 20% bucket, or are we talking about these numbers for the entire over $1 billion size of the project?
Matt, do you remember the value on the
Yeah,
first
it was
slide?
in the range. Well, that came from the first slide. This estimate was in the range of a little 600 million or so of construction value that these numbers fell out of.
Okay, so these numbers
million worth of construction.
Okay, great. That's helpful. So $600 million overall DBE. I wish I was better at math. I always rely on my little computer for this. So what is the percent?
Sure, I'll be glad to help you. So the first tier value is in the 13% range of the contract value.
Mm-hmm.
Capacity is around 10. No, excuse me, 5. And then the mini prime's 10. And what's coming out of the preliminary analysis is 28% of the contract value of what we've identified.
Again, we want to state that's the preliminary analysis, Kenichi. What we've committed to is 18 to 22%, but looking at the analysis, we came in, we input this. Right now, we're at 22 or 28%, but that's just, again, preliminary. is based off a 20% estimate. So we have a lot more work to do.
Great. So yes, that is a great follow-up, because I think with particularly the mini CMGCs, I'd like to see that expanded. If we're talking about 3 to 5 contractors, then if we split $55 million 5 ways, we're looking at about 10 million. I think that number can be more robust, and certainly I'm sure that 600 is a starting point, and fully expect to see that number grow a little bit, but I would like to see a little bit more in that mini CMGC bucket, as well as the capacity building, and I think the overall DBE. Of course, the intent here is that as the project grows, that we don't see a shrinkage in the percentage allocation for DBEs, that there is a commensurate and really that number that you're expecting will balloon will also show up in the allocation for the DBEs.
And COAC members, I'm going to ask that you hold your questions as indicated a second ago. We need to let the CMGC get through the slide so we can get into breakout groups. So Mr. Posey, if you could just hold your question until the end here. They're almost done. CMGC, if you can kind of speed up your pace, then we can get to breakout groups.
Sure. So, what we want to do is we want to build support with y'all for this process. It's well established. I've been using it on every major project here in Portland for 25 years. It allows us to identify scope early for DBEs, which allows us to match DBEs up with the right scope. It allows the outreach to be targeted in the right place, and it allows us to leverage past relationships, not just to hook up the past contractors, but also to leverage new contractors into the mix. Next slide, please. So what we should all get excited about is that we're actually sharing this information openly and talking about it. The next steps that are coming up, I think are exciting. I think we're going to have a lot of ongoing dialogue around the mini prime scopes of work. We are going to see the early work package A and B advance to the 30% design level. And once we advance those 2 packages to the 30% design level, we'll be able to re-up the green sheet to match that progression of the design. And what, I'm going to say this lightly, but the DBE contracting aspect of this equation is kind of the simple part. The more complicated part is the workforce analysis. And that's something to look forward to, but we got to do it in building blocks. You got to do the DBE contracting piece first so that you can look at what those DBEs workforces look like before you could get into the workforce analysis. So to me, these are all exciting things that are coming up. I love having a forum like this to discuss it. And that's the end of our presentation.
Great. We'll take James Posey, and then we're going to get into the breakout groups.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, as somebody that's been in construction for 25, 30, 40 years, that if you just take race out of this, DBE out of this whole concept would be difficult. And for us to understand that it takes generations to be able to build capacity within companies to be able to perform this work over the years. And so for us to really think about the expectation of how this project is going to move forward and the sort of time and energy that they've already developed is quite remarkable. And so for us to be realistic about what the actual outcomes will be is for us to understand that for many, many decades, people of color have not been able to progress in this industry like white folk have. And so therefore, whatever work that comes out of this and whatever goals that are met by the contractor is going to be contingent on the history of where we've been, and will pretty much dictate where we're going, with the exception of how we've been able to get this magnificent contractor to be able and willing to be able to do this in the way they're getting ready to do it. So we should be thankful because this is not the norm.
Amber, if you could give us an overview of our breakout groups, and I'll ask for folks to save their questions for the breakout discussion. Amber, could you give an overview of our breakout?
Sure. So again, like all of our breakout groups, so we're going to split up into two groups. Each group is going to be asking and discussing the same question. So for COAC members, please identify one COAC leader to report back out. And if that person can take notes and represent the entire group, then what we will do is we'll come back after the report out, and each of the COAC facilitators will communicate the comments and recommendations that come out of each group. So we have to reconvene at around 5:42. So we have, we will probably have about, we're a little bit behind schedule, so we'll have about 25 or so minutes, and then you're going to have about 15 minutes to report back out. So if we can move to the breakout groups, that would be great.
So just real quickly, we'll have two groups. One will be headed by Bill Bruce. Group number two will be headed by Jeff Moreland. Next slide. And the question that we'll want you to ponder in the breakout groups is, what recommendations can COAC make to improve connecting these project scopes and values with contractors while meeting community expectations? So that is the purpose of the discussion. And with that, we are going to go ahead and do breakouts now.
Natalie, has everyone returned from the breakout?
It looks like we're waiting on room 2 to come back to the space.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Michael, your comment about telling the Ray Moore story, like, I think it would be awesome if there could be like a video produced on how it started and what happened and the evolution, and include interviews with people that you could post on social media or LinkedIn. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, the work that Bill has done, the work that Ray Moore has done, and I'm sure there's others we could highlight, just what they contributed to this community would be, I think it's worth documenting, and not once, but multiple times, because read something in the paper and it's out of your brain pan, right? Because there's so much other stuff going on in the world, work, bad press, what have you. So I think it's a worthwhile effort to put some effort into, some money and effort into documenting.
And welcome back, everyone. Just doing a quick time check. I think that section went a little bit longer. Want to be respectful of those who want to provide public comments. So if one of our team members can inform me if we have members of the public wishing to make a public comment. Amber, if you could go through the public comment process so that we can find out whether or not we'll have time for the report outs. Amber?
Sorry about that. Natalie, do we have anyone in the queue for public comment?
No, we do not at this time. Anyone joining from the live stream, the information on how to make a public comment is below the video. And it's also on the agenda.
And maybe we could just real quickly go through what that procedure is, if we can get that slide up for those who may be watching and have not been known here. Okay. So if someone could just go over that real quickly.
So If anyone wishes to make a public comment, you can dial 971-247-1195. The meeting ID is 838-2563-9732. The passcode is 218776. You can also leave a voicemail at 503-470-3127. You will have 1 minute for comment. Please state your name, speak slowly. You can also send us an email at info@i5rosequarter.org, or you can submit it via the website.
So we'll just wait a second. Natalie, anyone wishing to speak or address the committee?
I'm not seeing any comments at this time.
Okay, with that, we will go to report outs. And maybe we'll start with your group, Bill.
And before we go to the report outs, can we allow us to see each other, pretty please? Sorry, can you take us off the slides? Thank you.
We know that Michael Birch is as good looking as he was before we went into breakouts.
Are we doing Bill's? So that would mean Mr. Posey is up. Where's Posey? Posey, you're on mute.
Yeah, you all twisted my arm. You know I can't walk and chew gum at the same time, taking a report and run my mouth at the same time. But anyway.
Mr. Posey, just a reminder, the meeting ends at 6. So,
Okay.
so if that's any guide for you.
Okay, I'll get you, Donnell. Okay, well, listen, one of the items that I brought up was building the capacity through making sure we have a strong pipeline. Now, we early on in this COAC talked about that. It's not just what we're going to do in 2023, it's what we do now, what ODOT does now. There's a broad range of projects that have been going on all the whole time. And so unless we're analyzing that pipeline and building those capacity from the body of people that are out here now, then we're shooting ourselves in the foot. So we need to spend more time doing that. That's what I said. Okay, so one of the other things was, in my mind, outreach is sometimes overrated because real work occurs when you have relationships. And I think Webb mentioned that. This is about building relationships and building them now and making sure that you have the capacity to get people involved. So building relationships through being intentional is one of the key words we talked about. And then for me, what sums up much of our discussion was let Raymore be Raymore. We're fortunate to have a company that already does what we're trying to get them to do. They're doing that. So what we want to do is replicate that, scale that up, make that better, do all we can to get Raymore in a position to have a free hand to do what they need to do, what they've already been successful. And that sounds simple, but let these people go. Let them do their thing, as we say. So that's one thing. Somebody mentioned about the database, the COVID database, and we had a lot of discussion about the database. But at the end of the day, the database has not served us in any capacity to build anything historically. From what I can see, 75% of the people on COVID and the COVID database don't look like minorities. We all know that. And then even when you do get those, that don't mean they're going to be really representative of the minority community. So the database is maybe a good tool for some people, but not, from my opinion, not that great. The other thing was I said scale up, and finally, I didn't get a chance to really mention it, but you want to incentivize the behavior you want to see. These guys are doing this already out here, but if there's no motivation and intentional motivation to get them to do more of what they're doing, why should they? Or why would they? So it's a simple matter of incentivizing and doing the thing the right way. And one of the things that Michael wanted to bring up, which I've said repeatedly, I want him to talk to that right now. Michael, would you go at that?
I will. Thank you. So 2 things. One is the neighborhood association, the No More Freeways, the folks that are complaining about this project, the folks that are filing lawsuits. We are not out in front of the negative narrative talking about the positive aspects of this project. We're listening to, reading in the paper about how bad this is going to be for an area, right? And I won't bite my tongue here, but the people that I saw protesting didn't look like me, right? They're talking about the damage to the neighborhood. So that was very interesting and frustrating. So that's one pocket. We should talk about in writing. Each of us has the ability to write the paper, an editorial, and say what we think about this project and what it will bring to the community. The second thing is that we talked a lot about cloning Bill Bruce and the good that Raymore is doing. And I said, here again, these are best kept secrets. I had no idea who Terrence Hayes is, but I heard his story, and it's a story worth telling. It's a story worth documenting, and this is going to be a long-term project, right? So someone should be dedicated with money in pocket or in hand to document the positive outcomes, the positive work that contractors will do on this job. I think not only should someone on this project, but I think ODOT, the larger organization with deeper pockets, should also, for future projects, document the positive aspects of this job, the way that people are brought up and trained and mentored throughout the project. There's more than one story to be told, and you can't tell it once, right? Fill up a binder with positive outcomes, positive work that's being done, even if it doesn't turn out the way we want it to. The work that went into it to try to make it work is what needs to be documented. We need to tell these stories over and over again because people will forget. You pick up the newspaper, you read an editorial, you're either happy or sad about it, and then you read the funnies and you forget all about what you read in the editorial, or the news is so bad on television that you forget about it. So we need to document the work that's going into this project that is turning out the future contractors, the workforce that's coming. We just need to document it.
Michael,
did I cover it, James?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I would have said. I would have said it differently. Like they need to get the hell in here and get to work. And you know, all my voluntary, all my violent language. They need to get their ass on out here and get this done. ODOT is not doing his job. Blah 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 blah. They need to get this thing done, and they're not getting it done. This story is lopsided, and I blame a lot of it on ODOT. So they need to get this thing right now. Now, I'm done.
Don't we have a $10 cuss fine that people get?
I'm sorry.
Are you trying to bankrupt? You trying to bankrupt James?
All right, everybody. Let's move to group number 2. Thank you for that. Group number 1, and I'll cover. Our group had a robust discussion, really about the communication side of things. But just a couple of things to note. One is it's important to remind for COAC. To remind the community with respect to all of the opportunities that are occurring relative to this project. That came up a fair amount, and the need for COAC to be in alignment with the expectations of the community relative to this project. That opportunities of the project needs to be communicated to the community, and that with respect to the many CMGC opportunities, we had a long conversation about this. That they are, to the extent that is possible, that the many CMGC opportunities are larger and really create new capacities and generational wealth. Also, that the eventual firms, making sure that the firms that are selected in a way for which the size of the packages are actually meaningful and really growing capacities, helping to grow the capacities. Lots of commentary about the need to share the positives about this project with the community, such that it's not a one-sided sort of message as it appears to be right now. Am I missing anything from the group? Open it up now to my group to chime in if I'm missing anything. Okay, hearing none. Well, thank you all for that great discussion, and big hats off to the CMGC and the team for a really well done presentation and a phenomenal discussion. This is exactly why this committee was set up, and it's I think a credit to ODOT for really leaning into the discomfort. We are really asking the difficult questions and having the difficult conversations. So thank you all for that. Amber, Andre, what are our next steps? If you can kind of give folks a foreshadow in terms of what's happening, and then we can wrap up.
I think what we see coming next time is workforce. We're going to come back to you and talk to you, well, not us, but the contractor JV is going to come back and talk about workforce. And again, as Jeff has said, this is based on the 20% and what they are, but here's how they're looking at workforce and to some of the questions that have been asked in the past, hopefully start providing you some answers, and probably as today will create even more questions, but it starts that process.
Great. Amber, any final remarks to that? Yes, I'll see you, Mr. Posey, just 1 second. Amber, anything?
Sure. So especially given that folks really wanted to dig in terms of like technical assistance and capacity, we'll regroup and see you know, how we can put together the next meeting in a way that allows you to do that. And so because I know you all really want to dig into that topic too. James?
Right.
Yeah, oftentimes, you know, I don't think, you know, the left hand knows what the right hand is doing. And I say that because this HAP meeting is next Tuesday. And some of you all who are advocates for this project need to listen and maybe comment on what the HAP is doing. You know, it's an age-old strategy to kind of divide and conquer. But as a community, we need to let other folk know what's really going on and what it really means to have this project, so they won't have any illusions about what we need to do. So I would just recommend that folk who have the time and the ability is to sit in on this HAP meeting, because you don't want the tail wagging the dog, y'all.
And that's actually
tail wagging the dog. So
that's a good segue. I'm wondering, Dr. Ho didn't know I was going to do this, but I'm wondering if you can speak just 30 seconds about what's upcoming HAB, and if you would be willing to do that.
Hey, thanks, John L. Sorry, guys, I can't pull the camera on. Great meeting, great discussion. And Mr. Posey, you are exactly on point. The heartbeat between the HAB, the Executive Steering Committee that I facilitate and a strategic consultant on this work, and the HAB, the Historic Albina Advisory Board, is what Erica Warren facilitates, both through Tri-Excellence. Our goal is to make sure that we are coordinating efforts between the COAC, the HAB, and the Executive Steering Committee to keep from having the tail wag the dog, and to keep from being in a place where information is not being shared among the groups. And so that's a lot of the work that's going on, and we'd more than love to have you not only at the HAB, but also at the Executive Steering Committee for those who might be able to participate in that, which is on Monday. So our efforts, John L., myself, Erica, as well as Amber with Andre, is to coordinate our work so that it is complementary and cohesive. And I would also say that telling the story, telling our narrative, and being accurate and truthful about what's actually happening can dispel the myths and the campfire stories that are out in the community.
Great, thank you, Dr. Holt. Megan, any final remarks before we turn up?
A huge thank you. And James, you are right. We need to do better on the communications front. I heard that loud and clear in our breakout group as well. So we've taken that to heart, and making sure that we're putting the resources towards improving in that department. But again, thank you for a really wonderful COAC meeting, at least in the breakout group that I was in. Like that, this is why we're here. This is exactly the type of information that we need to push us to do better. Keep holding us accountable, and thanks for keeping the show up.
Thank you all. Have a great evening. Stay safe, and we'll see you next month. Thank you, everybody.